Welcome back to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Love Crimes of Passion series,
Oh,
episode 14.
okay.
This season, we've been exploring cases where love, betrayal, and obsession tragically intertwine.
Yeah.
And today we're taking a deep dive into a case that gripped Kanpur, India, back in 2010.
All right.
The murder of Pinky Anand,
Yes.
a young school teacher who, on the surface, seemed to have it all.
It's a case that reminds us how appearances can be deceiving. Pinky Anand was beloved 28 years old, known for her cheerful personality and dedication to her students. Married to a local businessman, Rajesh Anand, they projected an image of a happy, successful couple.
Wow.
But as we delve deeper,
Okay.
you'll see that beneath this facade, a much darker reality was unfolding.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What challenges were Pinky and Rajesh facing in their marriage?
Rajesh's demanding work schedule often kept him away from home, leading Pinky to feel increasingly isolated and neglected.
Oh.
This sense of loneliness created a void in her life, a void that unfortunately someone else was all too eager to fill.
You're talking about Sanjay Mehta, right?
Yes,
The family acquaintance who entered Pinky's life during this vulnerable time.
exactly. Sanjay initially offered Pinky companionship and a listening ear.
Okay.
However, his intentions soon became clear. As he spent more time with Pinky, his feelings morphed into a dangerous obsession, blurring the lines between care and control.
So Sanjay's behavior went from friendly support to something much more sinister.
Right.
What were some of the early warning signs of his obsession?
His actions became increasingly possessive.
Okay.
Sanjay constantly questioned Pinky's whereabouts, scrutinized her friendships, and even began monitoring her phone calls and messages.
Wow.
This wasn't about caring for Pinky, it was about isolating and controlling her.
It's chilling to see how seemingly innocent gestures can be twisted into tools of manipulation.
Yes.
How did Pinky react to Sanjay's escalating behavior?
She tried to set boundaries,
Okay.
to distance herself from him.
Okay.
She confided in a close friend about Sanjay's aggression.
But hesitated to inform Rajesh.
Why?
Perhaps out of fear of causing a conflict or a sense of shame.
Right.
It's a tragic dilemma many victims face, choosing silence, in the hope that the situation will somehow resolve itself.
And of course, that silence often allows the danger to escalate further. Did Sanjay's behavior continue to spiral?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Driven by rejection and a growing sense of entitlement,
Oh, wow.
Sanjay's frustration reached a breaking point. He began to concoct a plan, a horrifying act fueled by his inability to accept Pinky's rejection.
This is where things take that devastating turn, leading to the night of the murder.
Yes.
Can you set the scene for us?
It was the evening of November 15th, 2010. Rajesh was away at a business meeting, leaving Pinky alone at home. Sanjay, seizing this opportunity, concocted a ruse, an urgent matter that required him to speak with Pinky immediately. He used this fabricated crisis as a way to gain entry into her home.
So he manipulates his way into her house using deception to get past her guard. What happens next? The events that unfolded within those walls are truly horrific.
Oh.
Sanjay, fueled by rage and a twisted sense of betrayal, confronted Pinky.
Yeah.
He demanded an explanation for her attempts to distance herself, for her rejection of his advances.
I can only imagine the terror Pinky must have felt trapped in her own home with a man consumed by such intense anger.
When she refused to comply with his demands, when she pleaded with him to leave, his rage boiled over. He grabbed a kitchen knife and attacked Pinky in a brutal frenzy.
Her neighbors heard the commotion, didn't they?
They did.
Why didn't they intervene?
They did hear screams, but tragically they mistook the sounds for a domestic dispute between Pinky and her husband.
Oh, no.
This delayed any response, costing precious time that might have saved Pinky's life.
It's heartbreaking to think that those who might have helped were misled by their assumptions.
Yes.
How was Pinky finally discovered?
By the time help did arrive, it was far too late. Sanjay had already fled the scene, leaving behind a horrifying tableau. Pinky lay lifeless in a pool of her own blood. The murder weapon, that same kitchen knife, discarded nearby, a grim testament to the savagery of the attack.
It's just devastating. So Sanjay escapes. What did the police do next?
The Kanpur police immediately launched a full-scale investigation. They started by gathering witness accounts from neighbors, several of whom placed Sanjay at Pinky's home that very evening.
So right from the start, he's a prime suspect.
Absolutely. And the evidence against him quickly mounted. They discovered his fingerprints on the murder weapon, and traces of his DNA were found at the crime scene. The forensic evidence corroborated the witness statements, creating a very damning picture.
Sanjay had left behind a trail of evidence that directly linked him to the crime.
Yeah.
Did he try to deny it?
He initially tried to flee.
Okay.
However, thankfully, he was apprehended just 3 days later while attempting to escape to another city.
Oh, wow.
During interrogation, he confessed to the murder.
So Sanjay admits to killing Pinky, but what's his explanation?
He claimed it was a crime of passion, arguing that he acted in a moment of emotional distress and uncontrollable rage brought on by Pinky's rejection.
The crime of passion defense. It's often used in cases like this.
Yes.
But in this case, it feels particularly chilling, given his calculated actions leading up to the murder.
You've hit on a crucial point. The trial that followed became a lightning rod, sparking intense discussions about stalking obsession and the disturbingly common use of the crime of passion defense to minimize violence against women.
So the stage is set for a high-profile trial, one that would delve into the complexities of this case and its broader societal implications.
Exactly. The prosecution was determined to portray Sanjay as a calculated killer, while the defense aimed to paint him as a victim of heartbreak driven to desperation by Pinky's rejection. The trial would become a battleground for these competing narratives, with the life of a young woman hanging in the balance.
This case, as we've seen, goes far beyond a simple act of violence. It delves into the dark underbelly of obsession control and the tragic consequences of unchecked rage.
And it raises critical questions about how society perceives and addresses these issues.
We'll take a deeper look into the trial itself and its aftermath right after this. But for now, let's pause for a moment and let everything we've discussed so far sink in. We're back, and now we're going to dissect one of the most crucial aspects of this case, the trial of Sanjay Mehta.
The trial, which began in early 2011, drew massive public attention. The media closely followed every development, and public opinion was sharply divided.
Oh, wow.
Some saw Sanjay as a monster, while others viewed him as a heartbroken lover driven to a desperate act.
It sounds like the courtroom became a microcosm of society's struggle to understand the complexities of obsession and violence within relationships.
Yes.
How did the prosecution approach their case?
The prosecution built a meticulously detailed case, presenting Sanjay not as a man blinded by love, but as a manipulative individual whose inability to accept rejection led him to commit a premeditated murder.
So their strategy was to dismantle that crime of passion defense.
Yes.
To show that this wasn't a spontaneous act, but something much more calculated.
Precisely. They presented a compelling timeline of Sanjay's escalating obsession with Pinky, using witness testimonies from her friends and family to illustrate the fear and helplessness she experienced.
The testimony of those closest to Pinky must have been powerful.
It was.
Painting a vivid picture of her ordeal.
They shared chilling accounts of Sanjay's controlling behavior, his relentless attempts to isolate Pinky, and her growing fear for her safety. These testimonies effectively humanized Pinky, reminding the jury that she was not just a victim, but a vibrant young woman whose life was tragically cut short.
So the prosecution successfully established Sanjay's obsessive behavior and Pinky's fear. How did the defense counter this?
The defense, as we mentioned earlier, clung to the crime of passion narrative. They argued that the murder was not premeditated, but rather an impulsive act fueled by a moment of uncontrollable rage.
So they were essentially trying to paint Sanjay as a man driven to the brink by unrequited love, not as a cold-blooded killer. Did this strategy resonate with the jury?
The jury was clearly conflicted. They deliberated for several days, carefully weighing the evidence and arguments presented by both sides. The trial became a platform for broader discussions about societal attitudes towards stalking obsession and the dangerous normalization of possessiveness in relationships.
Sanjay's defense, though ultimately unsuccessful, seemed to tap into a deeply ingrained societal narrative, the idea of a man so blinded by love that he commits an act of violence.
It's a dangerous and deeply flawed narrative that often minimizes the very real threat posed by obsessive behavior.
Pinky's case served as a stark reminder that love should never be a justification for violence control or the denial of another person's autonomy.
Exactly. The trial forced people to confront uncomfortable truths about the ways in which possessiveness and control can masquerade as love and the devastating consequences that can result.
So after days of deliberation and intense public scrutiny, what was the verdict?
In mid-2011, the jury reached a decision. They found Sanjay Mehta guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. While this brought a sense of justice for Pinky's grieving family, it also left them with a profound sense of loss and the knowledge that nothing could truly bring her back.
The verdict, though, offering some closure, couldn't erase the pain and trauma caused by Sanjay's actions.
Right.
What was the lasting impact of this case on Kanpur and on India as a whole?
Pinky's murder became a symbol, a catalyst for change. It sparked widespread discussions about the need for stronger laws against stalking, better support systems for victims of obsessive behavior, and a fundamental shift in societal attitudes that often trivialize or romanticize possessiveness.
It's almost as if Pinky's story and its tragic ending became a wake-up call.
It was a stark reminder that these issues, often hidden behind closed doors, demand our attention. Pinky's case exposed the cracks in the system, the ways in which warning signs are often overlooked, and the urgent need for prevention and intervention.
You've highlighted the societal impact of this case, but let's zoom in a bit. What about Pinky's family? How did they cope with this unimaginable loss?
The family, as you can imagine, was devastated. They were left grappling not only with the grief of losing Pinky in such a brutal manner, but also with the agonizing question of, what if? What if they had recognized the signs sooner?
Right.
What if they had intervened?
It's a burden no family should have to bear. And yet it's a question that haunts many who have lost loved ones to violence, fueled by obsession and control. What became of Rajesh?
Rajesh, consumed by guilt and grief, retreated from public life. He struggled to come to terms with the fact the woman he loved had been living in fear that the danger lurking in their lives had gone unnoticed.
His story underscores the ripple effects of these crimes, the way they shatter lives and leave lasting scars on those left behind.
It's a reminder that justice, while crucial, is only one part of the equation. Healing from such trauma is a long and arduous journey, one that requires support, understanding, and a commitment to addressing the underlying issues that contribute to such tragedies.
Pinky's case, as we've explored, is a multifaceted tragedy.
Yeah.
It exposed the dark side of human nature, the dangers of unchecked obsession, and the systemic failures that often allow such crimes to occur.
And it highlighted the urgent need for a societal awakening, a collective effort to recognize the warning signs, challenge harmful narratives, and create a world where love is never used as a weapon, but as a force for good.
It's a heavy but essential conversation. And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of the key takeaways from this case and what we can all do to prevent future tragedies. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, exploring the tragic case of Pinky Anand and the complex web of obsession, control, and violence that led to her death. As we reflect on everything we've learned, what stands out to you as the most crucial takeaway?
For me, it's the realization that Pinky's story is not an isolated incident. It's a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath the surface of seemingly normal relationships. The ways in which possessiveness and control can be mistaken for love, and the tragic consequences that can result when warning signs are ignored.
You're right. This case forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about societal attitudes toward stalking and obsessive behavior. We often hear phrases like, he was just so in love with her, or she drove him to do it.
Exactly.
These narratives, while seemingly harmless, can actually perpetuate a dangerous cycle by minimizing the very real threat posed by obsessive individuals.
Exactly. These narratives shift the blame from the perpetrator to the victim, creating an environment where obsessive behavior is excused or even romanticized. We need to challenge these harmful narratives and recognize that possessiveness, control, and violence are never expressions of love.
So how do we shift the conversation? How do we move from simply reacting to these tragedies to actively preventing them?
It starts with education and awareness. We need to equip ourselves and our communities with the knowledge to recognize the red flags of obsessive behavior. Things like excessive jealousy, controlling behavior, isolating someone from their friends and family. These are all serious warning signs that should never be ignored.
Early intervention is crucial. If we see these red flags in our own relationships or in the relationships of those around us, we have a responsibility to speak up. We need to create an environment where victims feel safe and supported, to come forward where they know they'll be believed and taken seriously.
We also need to address the systemic failures that often allow these crimes to occur. This includes strengthening laws against stalking, providing better training for law enforcement to recognize and respond to these threats, and ensuring that victims have access to adequate support systems and legal recourse.
Pinky's case exposed those systemic cracks, highlighting the need for a multi-pronged approach that combines education, prevention, and robust legal frameworks. It's a call to action for all of us to be more vigilant, more empathetic, and more proactive in creating a world where love is never used as a weapon.
And it's a call to remember Pinky Anand not just as a victim, but as a vibrant young woman whose life was tragically cut short. Her story should serve as a catalyst for change, inspiring us to work towards a future where such tragedies are prevented and where love is truly a force for good.
Well said. And on that note, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Pinky Anand murder case.
It's been a difficult but crucial conversation, one that we hope will spark further dialogue and action.
If anything we've discussed today resonates with you, if you see the warning signs in your own relationship or in the relationships of those around you, please don't hesitate to reach out for help. There are resources available, there are people who care, and you don't have to face this alone.
And remember, you can subscribe and follow CrimePod Castle for more deep dives into cases that shed light on the complexities of human behavior and the criminal justice system.
Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and keep those critical conversations going.